If you want to maximize the muscle growth you can get from your workouts, then you need to make sure that your nutrition's on point. Your training creates tiny tears in your muscles and provides the stimulus for muscle growth, but the food that you eat is actually what gives your body the fuel and the resources it needs to repair, recover, and build new muscle tissue that's bigger and stronger. There's 3 things you need for an effective muscle building meal plan. The first one is eating enough protein every day. The second one is eating in a small calorie surplus so that you're gaining between 1 to 2% of your body weight per month if you're a beginner and 0.5 to 1% of your weight per month if you're an intermediate to advanced lifter. And the third one is prioritize eating fewer highly processed foods. If you've got all of those down already, then that's a really great start, but it's not going to be enough to maximize your muscle building potential. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to optimize your diet to speed up the muscle building process, and at the end of the video I'll show you how to combine all of the tips to create your own optimal lean bulking meal plan. This is episode 2 of our new lean bulking series, and in last week's video I showed you how to set up your calories and your macros so that you get the best results in your bulk. So after this video, make sure you go and catch up so that you know exactly how many carbs, fats and proteins you should be including in your bulking meal plan. First, let's talk protein. Each of your meals should include at least 20 grams of protein to elevate protein synthesis. Essentially, muscle protein synthesis is a metabolic process which takes amino acids and turns them into proteins, which helps build and maintain muscle mass. This happens when exercise and other stressors damage muscle fibers, creating tiny little tears that are replaced by new amino acids, which is how you build new muscle tissue. There's a couple of factors that make a protein source high quality. The first one is the amount of leucine it contains, which is the amino acid that's arguably strongest at stimulating muscle protein synthesis. The second is how easy that protein source is to digest and be used by your body. Whey protein, chicken, fish and eggs are all really good high quality protein sources, but I'll list a few more on screen now of the best protein sources to add into your diet, including plant-based options for those of you who are vegan. These do score lower on the list, but can be used for muscle growth if you eat them in large enough amounts, and mix a combination of different protein sources to increase the protein synthesis response. Getting a good plant-based protein powder can come in really handy here, just to make sure that you're getting enough high quality protein in. In general, having a minimum of 20 grams of quality protein per meal has been shown to be enough to elevate levels of protein synthesis for at least a few hours depending on the meal. So to keep protein synthesis levels high throughout the day, research suggests that it's more effective to split up your daily protein into 3 to 5 separate meals rather than cramming in a lot of protein into one meal and then having less than 20 grams in all of the other ones. One 2020 study even found that out of 2 groups who both did the same workout plan over 12 weeks, the group that split up their protein evenly into 3 meals saw 30% more muscle growth than the group who skewed most of their protein just into 2 meals. That's crazy! So evenly distributing your protein into 3 to 5 meals is going to be best for muscle protein synthesis, but that's only when you're awake. Our bodies are still building muscle and going through the recovery process as we sleep, so we need to make sure that we're giving it enough fuel and the resources that it needs to do that overnight. No, I'm not saying get up every few hours and go and chug a protein shake. That's potentially going to be worse for your recovery considering how important sleep is in the recovery process, but biasing your last meal of the day in terms of protein so that you're including at least 40 grams of quality slow digesting protein just before you go to bed, that's really going to help. Casein is the most common form of slow digesting protein and is found mostly in dairy, but you can also get it as a powder. For me, I like to include cottage cheese or Greek yogurt for the slow digesting protein before bed, but I also sometimes have peanut butter with this because the fats from the peanut butter also slow down digestion, which can help sort of extend the muscle protein synthesis out a bit more. Tip number 2 is use your blood sugar levels strategically. After you eat, your body breaks down digestible carbohydrates into simple sugars called glucose, and this happens in your gut. The glucose then goes into your bloodstream and travels around your body to give you energy. Your levels of blood glucose, or your blood sugar level, rises and falls in the first few hours after you have a meal, and this is completely normal. But even if 2 people ate the exact same meal, one person might have a much higher blood sugar spike than the other one. If these big spikes and dips occur occasionally, then that's not a problem, but if it starts to become a regular thing, then that can increase your risk of cardiovascular disease or type 2 diabetes. On top of that, if you find that you have sugar cravings, fatigue, brain fog, trouble sleeping, skin problems, then stabilize stabilizing your blood glucose levels can really help, and that all starts with breakfast. Savory breakfasts that are high in protein and healthy fats can help regulate our blood sugar levels and give us sustained energy throughout the day. Some ideas are things like breakfast frittata, scrambled egg on toast, savory pancakes, or sweet potato with cottage cheese. I've actually got a whole load more recipes for breakfast, lunch, dinners, and snacks in my new recipe book, so I'll make sure to link that in the description. However, spikes in blood sugar levels aren't always bad, and we can sometimes use them to our advantage to help us get the most out of our training. Exactly what you eat pre-workout ultimately depends on how close that meal is to you actually going and training. I would advise that your pre-workout meal should ideally be around 60 to 90 minutes before you go and work out, because this will give your body enough time to digest the food that you've eaten, and you won't really feel so tired or fatigued when you actually go and train. The exact amount of time that you leave between that meal and going to work out will vary from person to person, so have a little play around with it and see what works best for you. Although eating your pre-workout meal a much longer time before your workout risks you not having enough energy to push as hard as you could during your training. The closer you are to working out, you want to prioritize faster digesting foods, fewer calories, and fewer fats. So a good example of a pre-workout meal is some cereal with a protein shake and fruit. If we're training really close to our workout, we don't want to include so many complex carbs or a lot of fats, because they both take a longer time to digest, which could lead to you feeling not as comfortable during your session. If you're eating a lot longer before your workout, you want to be including higher calories, slower digesting carbs, and more fats and fiber to slow down your digestion. This will help make sure that you've still got more of that energy available while you're actually working out. And a good example of a pre-workout meal in this case could be salmon with some sweet potatoes, some feta salad, and some fruit. Now, some people will perform better when training fasted, especially if they're working out first thing in the morning, because sometimes eating a big meal before you go and train that early on can leave you feeling nauseous, and it's something that a lot of people struggle with. So this is where your post-workout meal becomes very important. For a really long time, it was thought that you had to get your post-workout meal in within 30 minutes of finishing your workouts, and if you didn't get your protein in within this anabolic window, then you lose all your gains. Now, there is some truth to it, but it's really not as dramatic as people make out to be. It is good to get in your protein as soon as you can after your workouts, and this becomes more important if you've trained fasted, but in reality, you really have between 4 to 5 hours from your previous meal to get in your next meal after your workout. So as an example, say I had my pre-workout meal an hour before I went to work out. I then worked out for an hour, and that's 2 hours after I'd had that meal. So then on finishing my workout, I have a further 3 hours to then get my post-workout meal in. If you train fasted, then ideally you do want that post-workout meal to be as close to finishing your workout as you can. But if it takes you 30 minutes to an hour to get home before you can actually get your protein in, then it's not going to make too much of a difference. Because rates of glycogen resynthesis are at their highest within the first few hours after training, it's good to include at least some carbohydrates in your post-workout meal along with your protein. Again, I like to include a mixture of carb sources in my post-workout meal, so things like oats and fruit, because glucose and fructose use different transporters, so they get absorbed into the body at different rates, and that's good to help you sustain energy. Since rate of digestion doesn't matter as much in your post-workout meal, then you can include more fats, but the closer you are to being 5 hours from your previous meal, I would include a few fewer fats, so maybe less than 10 to 20 grams, just to make sure that you're not excessively slowing down your digestion, but that's a minor point, so you probably don't need to worry about it too much. So a good example of a post-workout meal could be chili con carne followed by some fruit and some yogurt, or a protein oatmeal with berries and walnuts. In order to maximize muscle growth while minimizing fat gain, you'll want to optimize your food choices. Opt for higher quality protein sources like we talked about earlier, and aim to include more unsaturated fats, so things like nuts, oily fish, avocados, and olive oil, instead of saturated fats like butter or cheese or some plant sources like coconut oil. Consuming high amounts of saturated fat may increase your risk of cardiovascular disease, and some research suggests that switching to include more unsaturated fats in your diet may enable more of the weight that you gain to be muscle rather than fat. So to put all this together, an example lean bulking meal plan could look something like this. Meal 1 could be scrambled eggs on toast with avocado. Meal 2 could be a protein shake or a protein bar with fruit. Meal 3 is going to be the pre-workout meal 60 to 90 minutes before training, and it's going to be egg fried rice followed by yogurt and berries. Meal 4 is our post-workout meal, and we're going to have protein oatmeal with berries and walnuts. And then meal 5 is going to be turkey mince, veg and rice followed by Greek yogurt or cottage cheese with peanut butter and dark chocolate. This is obviously just an example, and you'd have to take your own calories and macros that you already calculated and distribute them into these meals. So to find out the exact calories and macros you need to build the most muscle while minimizing fat gain, you need to watch this video next. Honestly, I appreciate you so much for watching, and I'll see you there.